Being a specialist and being a maverick in marketing is one way to look at it, depending on what field of marketing does really excite you. And the brands who had the repeat purchase value was actually creating value for the lifetime. You can bring some method to the variety which you see around, and then you apply the business management, marketing management, brand management to that particular industry. You've got a good combination going.
Hey there, welcome to Marketing Mavericks with Indiefolio. Today we have Neelima Burra with us, who's the Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer at Luminous. She's had an incredible career where she's worked with some iconic brands like Britannia, HP, had her own startup, and a lot of other companies out there. Be it energy, electronics, FMCG, she's pretty much done it all. We have a great conversation around really understanding rural marketing, unpacking her journey, and a lot more. Hey Nilama, thanks for your time and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Kavan. Thank you for having me here.
I'm excited to finally, speak to you. You've given me your time during the Diwali, season, so I really appreciate that. The first question I ask all my guests is actually, how do you get started with marketing as a career choice, right? If I'm not wrong, you did BSc, and I believe way long back, I think your intention wasn't to jump into marketing right from the onset. So if you can talk a little bit about, how that happened, it'll be great.
So, no, when I was doing BSc, I didn't think I will do marketing. Right? So, definitely, science always intrigued me because of the sheer logic which goes behind it. And technology was always very fascinating for me, also because of my background, since my father was in DRDO, and throughout I have seen him do a lot on research and development. He was himself a scientist. So that's the field which always fascinated me in exploring more towards it. But as I was growing and as the destiny would have it, I do met a lot of people from the field of management, and that really excited me to take that career forward. During that time, it was tough to crack CAT and difficult to actually get into premium institutes. But yes, all those things paid a lot. And finally, I was into MBA. And of course, marketing was a holistic field. It had all elements integrated into it. And what was fascinating was how an idea can really shape a business, and how could that make the profits skyrocket if it's done well. So that completely actually glued me into marketing, and that's how the marketing career started. Back in those days, marketing was integrated field, and it used to have all the P's integrated into it, including people, process, and profits. So that's how I came into marketing and continued to be keeping that as the core of the subject in whatever I'm doing.
Fantastic. I'm going to unpack some of that in some time. But I want to now jump into asking you about Ganymede. I'm a entrepreneur, and I always love hearing stories about other folks starting up. So if you can give a quick download to the audience about what Ganymede is and what was the insight behind that, it'll be really awesome to hear that.
Ganymede was not an individual idea. It was with a core group of five entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial mind people coming together from different industries and different field, which is sales, marketing, distribution, finance, HR. So we all had different background, having worked in different industries with different product, with different distribution systems and distribution models. Um, when you work in food industry, you actually interact with a lot of people in the food chain, right from the manufacturer side of it to actually the retail side of it, and more importantly the consumers. Food is one area which is very customized to the taste, and it changes from market to market, or I would say state to state. Every state has a different food palette. With FMCG nature of work at Kargil, wherein we used to travel to length and breadth of the country from urban to rural, and eating on the street while doing market visits, this one area kept us awake. That how when we are eating into different highways and streets, actually there is no common brand on the street, and all the brands which are there is packaged brands. So you see multiple brands like Pepsi, Coke, Frito-Lays and Lay's, uh, and many of water brands. But somehow from the retail outlets where they are sold, those are all those street carts and street vendors which are unbranded. So the idea of Ganymede came from democratizing the street food and street and creating a brand from the streets of India. So that is where it started. It took, I mean, I was not the beginner there. There were other partners of ours who initiated it. That time I was working with HP. And when finally this concept came to life, we felt that this right time to get on board, create the proof of concept. This was a street food vending brand wherein we were branding retail of food, and all the street vendors who were working with us were branded with Toto Good Food. We used to have a manufacturing center which was standardizing samosa and kachori manufacturing, and it was through an app wherein you can order as a street vendor. You can get enrolled with us with a minimum guarantee of income, and then finally you can order food from your nearest location, and that gets delivered to you in 45 minutes. So street vendor need not cook food at the street, keeping it very hygienic for other people to have it. And then those street carts were promoted to the nearby locations, so that nearby locality can order food from that street vendor, and that was giving them the minimum guarantee of 12 to 15,000 rupees per month. So that was the model. Actually we presented that and got a lot of appreciation on how this model was built at the grassroots level.
Fantastic.
Then came pandemic, and then we couldn't hold to scale it up. Maybe one day, better opportunities.
Yeah, I think, good luck to you for that idea, because it really resonates with at least, me. I must ask you, what's your favorite street food?
I love pani puri and samosas and kachoris on the street.
Uh,
Given a chance, I would have it everywhere. Especially samosas, because samosas change from city to city. The taste is different.
True, true, absolutely. And no wonder, those are some of the categories you also began with. Um, I now want to, jump into asking you about the diverse experience you've had. You've been in FMCG, you've been in luxury hospitality, you're in energy now. There's a lot of advice which is given to a lot of young marketeers. Ki yaar, you have to be either very diverse and do many things, or you have to stick to one industry and double down on that and understand, the customer and the segment extremely well. If you could share some thoughts on, if I'm a young marketer and I'm trying to understand, should I be a specialist of an industry or, be versatile? What are the pros and cons of both the approaches?
Depends, Kavan, what drives you actually. There is no wrong and right here for anyone to advise. Being a specialist and being a maverick in marketing is one way to look at it, depending on what field of marketing does really excite you. My journey was more about creating different marketing models which could impact businesses at a larger scale in terms of creating value for the customers and value for the shareholders. I started marketing with the thinking that you need to market when you see there is something unique or a value proposition in your product. So, marketing makes a commodity ultimately converted to brand. And if you have a brand has to create some value for the shareholders and the customers too, because you pay extra money for the brand, because brand is about creating experiences, creating stories, showing you the value for the money which you're paying. And it's also about creating, I would say, a lifetime value with repeat purchases. So that is where I felt that, and the brands who had the repeat purchase value was actually creating value for the lifetime.
Right.
So that is how I started. Different industry, different model actually enabled me to understand various aspect of business modeling, and accordingly how do you create a brand into those industries. What But ultimately at the core what remained fundamental to all the industries was marketing was about understanding who's your consumer and customer and what do they need. If you could understand, spend some time in really understanding that well, and then creating the product, the pricing strategies, or the promotion plans, or the distribution and placement strategies around it, where you can find those consumers, is the fundamental to how you create a marketing plan, which eventually becomes the core of a business plan,
Right.
and then ultimately impacts the profitability of the organization. And while I started my career with FMCG and moved to consumer durables and then hospitality and then technology as an industry with HP, and then finally energy as a sector, which is again a energy tech industry, what remained in the core was these fundamental which I described. That was common across. So while industries kept changing, this fundamental actually helped me to really grow myself and grow businesses in those organizations.
I think, being versatile really helps you sharpen your first principles of marketing, as you said. So that's the biggest takeaway there. I want to ask Neelima, though, I'll tell you why people get confused, when it comes to this particular question. Let's say, for example, that I wanted to work at Apple. I'm just putting out a name. um, a young marketer assumes that if I want to, let's say, become the CMO of Apple India, I'll have to spend 20 years doing just electronics and smartphones. But I constantly see in your case and a lot of other CMOs I've interviewed and marketing leaders I've interviewed, that sometimes leadership tends to hire people who also come from various backgrounds. So is it true that, let's say, I wanted to compete for a leadership position for a company, somebody who has more experience in that segment may get picked over me? Is that a doubt which is valid?
Yeah, so depends actually. It is about the versatility, and I personally feel that versatility is not just about the industry, but it's also about dealing with multiple ambiguities and the flexibility which you can bring in adapting to multiple industry nuances. I would say it is not about number of years of experience or number of industry experience. It's about how you could pick the variety of the situations and the problem solving attitude towards that industry. Same solution doesn't apply to every industry. While fundamentals of business management may remain at the core, or financial management or marketing management may be at the core, but every industry has its own differences. So if you're curious, if you're adaptable, if you love to work in ambiguity, and you can bring some method to the variety which you see around, and then you apply the business management, marketing management, brand management to that particular industry, you have got a good combination going. But for that, you will have to be adaptable to that industry where you've gotten. Initial few years goes definitely into learning the industry, which keeps you on your toes to actually find out all each and every situation analysis, context analysis, market analysis, and then for ultimately business analytics. If you have done these three, four things, and then knowing the consumers of that particular industry, then apply your expertise of business, brand, and marketing. I'm sure it will work for you. I think industries are looking for people from different background, different industry to create uh, newer models or of growth, or and also actually experiment and break the monotony of the industry, to actually create uh, newer model, create business expansion plans, revenue plans, also bring in newer consumer segments, to try different ways of using the products, which I think multi industry, multi brand experts can actually do that quite well. But the failure is if you just try to apply same thing in every industry. You have to really crossbreed to create newer business models.
I want to now ask you about rural marketing. You know, you were at Britannia, you were heading, I believe, Tiger Biscuits, and you did a lot of work in the rural marketing sector. There's a lot of chatter around that as well because, as we know, India 3, as people call it now, is the biggest chunk, and they're all really getting smarter, richer, better. And I wanted to kind of ask you, are there any key insights you can share about rural consumer behavior?
I think rural is at the core of the growth of in the country which you see. To me, urbanization, which is driving big time GDP and what you are seeing in terms of economic growth, one big portion of that urbanization is how rural has been changing, and I would say rural to rurban, and then finally urban. So this is the way the transition has been. The big change which I saw in rural consumers is the practicality of the solution which they are seeking. On top of it, how they are so beautifully aspiring towards a better life and a better future. The brands who could actually understand their needs in terms of what are their barriers in terms of the better life which they are aspiring, they could do really very well in small to big way. My take from rural working with Britannia was, when I was working with Britannia, it's been more than a decade now, but 75-gram biscuit pack used to be many a time one time meal to many of the people who were there in the rural areas. And within that, nutrition and nourishment was one of the biggest gap during that time. Even now, it continues to be one of the biggest factors. Um, Making products affordable through launching smaller SKUs, and also introducing 1 rupee pack, introducing cream biscuits during that time under glucose category, and also trying to energize their thinking towards future was one of the big agenda for growth, because we were working very truly on eat healthy and think better. And to think better, you have to feed, and you have to be nourished in your mind and body. So that is how Tiger Glucose biscuits at that time was built. We introduced that time Tiger Banana biscuits, which was also about nourishment, and fortifying the biscuits, which was again about nourishment. Rural to me was very is even now very I would say very close to my heart because I did a lot of my initial career work in rural areas, right from selling sanitary pads to iron and folic acid to women who were deprived of nourishment, and also selling ORS, which was again one of the big gaps into the rural areas, running multiple health camps with my first product, which was on contraceptive pills, and then finally selling them biscuits. So all these things was one of the very hardcore marketing, I would see. What it taught me was hardcore distribution. It also made me connect with the consumers, very core to them, being staying with them, understanding how they live, how they consume the product, what are the gaps into their socio-economical challenges which they face by being there into the rural areas, talking to the retailers or talking to the panchayats, sometimes anganwadis and health workers into those areas. I could see that I was not just selling product, I was actually changing lives. Every time I was able to convince a consumer to use a sanitary pad versus a cloth, which was a hygiene issue into the women's health, or convincing them to take iron folic acid, which could actually lead to better women health, leading to pregnancy challenges, which was better off, or reviving some school children, or with glucose biscuits, and saying that why nourishment is one of the biggest important reasons why they should look after food in a better way, and making glucose biscuits pack affordable and accessible into those retail counters. Some of those work actually made me very grounded as a marketeer, that it's always not about money, it's also about how sales and marketing can really change a quality of life into the areas where those products were distributed. The brand which really fascinated me during that time was Fair and Lovely, which was across all the villages before I could reach,
Wow.
because they were selling dreams to younger women who could look after themselves beautifully to get married, and later on how the brand transitioned itself to actually make it more career and make it more independent for their livelihood. So all these things are actually, I would say, a core of a marketeer to be a real maverick, when you say that you're a marketeer and you can change the way brands are built.
Fantastic. I think your focus and love for rural marketing is extremely evident in your answers and what you've done. I actually wanted to touch upon that. When I look at these newer brands coming up, right? There's a lot of conversation on premiumization, and there are a lot of opinions where people say that India mein growth or consumption to the rich people only do, and if you want to market a product to a customer segment, you should build it for the premium audience. And that's why today every CPG product has something cool about it and unique and boutique about it, and the price keeps on increasing. So do you feel, and you mentioned a very interesting point right at the start, that अगर consumption बढ़ाना है, अगर GDP बढ़ाना है इंडिया का, the rural folks are the ones who need to transact more. So there's some kind of a dichotomy here, and I thought, as someone who's focused so much on rural, what's your opinion on this, right? If today I was to build a brand, should I do it for the rural sector, or should I ride the premiumization wave?
It's a beautiful question, and I would say you have to balance, and it's about balancing what's your core of the business. And you need volume and value both to actually build a sustainable, profitable growth model. While rural to urbanization is about volume, which is where your mass market is there, and it leads to mass consumption with mass trial, with repeat purchases, which actually continues to be the core of any business in India today, considering we are 1.4 billion population country, and it will continue to evolve year on year. Premiumization, what it does is allows innovation to happen in the category. It allows you to bring better experiences, better products. It enables you to drive innovation through technology, through experiential marketing, through experiential models. And all those things, when you do, it has to add a bit of cost to the product, which makes you to premiumize. But premiumization is not bad. It's good for business, I always feel. If you have a business, always think what is my volume business and what's my value business. And if you can balance your business with 70-30 rule or 80-20 rule, that means 80% if it's your core as mass, which is coming from urbanization, and because rural is moving to urban, 20% or 30% of your business, if you can premiumize, that means the customer which is coming back to you as a repeat purchase, can that repeat purchase have a little bit of value added to it for a better experience and a better life, or a better taste or a better product? That better is actually your premiumization. So every time a customer is coming back to you, how is the experience better than the previous purchase? Is the question as a marketeer you have to always ask. And if you can give that better, you can premiumize. It's a myth that premiumization is about more expensive, making it more expensive or increasing price is equivalent to premiumization. You can do that if you have added a bit better. Your brand experience is better, add a more add a bit of premium to your brand. If your product experience is a bit better, please add that. If you have given more variety to the same basket of product, add more premium to it. And that is premiumization, which will continue to add to your bottom line, which continues to fund your technology innovation, which you need to bring into your business to actually give you better experiences. So to me, I would say marketeers' job is to help a brand premiumize smoothly,
Hmm.
right? If you are not able to premiumize your brand, that means somewhere marketing is not doing a great job of the role which they have.
So well put. I think I love the answer, and I think you articulated a very actionable item to where balance it, keep it 70-20, 70-30 or 80-20. And it's something I also really relate to. I believe it works across all segments and businesses. So
You
that
can apply this to any industry,
right.
any segment, any category, it will work for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. We spoke about your work in rural marketing, and I think we always as marketers create things which people want, right? But there are things sometimes which people want but they're afraid to share. And you mentioned, you worked in selling contraception or sanitary napkins, which has some level of an acceptance issue. So in such a area where people are maybe afraid to talk about it, or they're shy, or there are some taboos around these things, how do you successfully market a product in those categories?
See, taboos are what? Taboos are deep rooted belief which consumers carry over generations. Um, I would say in those categories, you have to go to understand the deep rooted belief of where is it coming from. So it is about not the conventional marketing of today you invested in a communication and tomorrow it should make you buy. That is impulse. So impulse consumer marketing and changing consumer behaviors are two different things. When we talk about selling products to deep rooted belief system, it needs a strong consumer behavior understanding, and also then doing behavior change communications, which can impact the change in the consumer day to day practices. It won't happen immediately. For ages, if people never used condoms because it was coming in the way of pleasure, then you have to solve the problem of condoms and pleasure connect together, and then have those meaningful, difficult conversations with consumers in their premises and their context to why they are not using it and what will change for them to use it. One of the insights of introducing female condoms at that point in time was all the contraceptive choices which were made possible were only for men. And if men refused to use condoms, then females had no choice than to go to contraceptive pills only,
Mm.
right? And back then, contraceptive pills had adverse effects on health as well. Today, there are better solutions, better possibilities. So, female condom was introduced um, as a choice in the hands of women, that even if men do not want to use it, you use it and protect yourself. It's their right to protect themselves. And a lot of education was done towards why that was necessary to protect them. Now, just see the nature of this conversation. This conversation you can't do while selling biscuits
Yeah.
or selling Maggie or selling a juice
Right.
or selling a fan or a mixer grinder. These are very different things. And while I'm talking about changing an attitude, behavior, and a practice, which has been there for ages, and there is a lot of social, uh, cultural nuances to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I think those categories will still need, we are now at a better space. There is better conversations happening in the households, but I still feel India needs a lot of those conversations by brands and businesses. And I wish that marketeers continue to do that legwork and a hard work at a ground level with the consumers to change those with psychometrics and psychographics going into the marketing modeling.
Absolutely. Kudos to you to take up such hard things and actually go ahead and execute it to change people's lives. And kudos to you and your team. Talking about hard things, one thing I wanted to cover also was you were leading, marketing and a bunch of aspects at the Oberoi Group. I believe you're the chief commercial officer, and it was during pandemic, and I think the hospitality industry was hit the hardest. So I think it's probably a very good case study of crisis management. If you could share some aspects on, if I'm a marketer and I'm in a crisis like that, how to navigate with Oberoi as an example, that'll be really interesting to hear.
I think first learning during that time was, firstly, I can't take the credit in 2 years' time because it's a great brand built with a lot of legacy from one generation to another generation. It's a generational brand, and it's been built with a lot of attention to detailing and with the processes and the people who are there in that company for ages to actually maintain and manage that in such an exceptional way. It's India's homegrown hospitality brand which went international, and it actually set a new benchmark for luxury as a segment, and it even now holds its own unique position. Besides, there are so many new brands which has coming into hospitality as an industry. In the crisis, it's not you who manage it very well, it's about the teamwork which enables you to manage the crisis really well. Pandemic was one such time when I was working with this brand where what mattered was the one-on-one interactions with the guests and the customers. More importantly, how do you really make the experience bespoke during that time of crisis when guests were checking in, while hotel rooms were going empty, but still there were domestic guests which were checking in. And and how do you actually make sure that their experiences are phenomenal while they are kept safe and healthy during the time when they were checking in. The managers at the hotel, the staff at the hotel of Oberoi Group were so well trained to actually manage those experiences beautifully well that it didn't allow crisis to be felt on their faces while people were battling life and death during that time. There were many of the guests who were also checking in to, enjoy their life, who came with their friends and families. So to keep that safe, to manage with the processes, and then be with your staff, also work with the owners so closely, to make sure that profitability and revenues are continuing to come in and hold the cost structures and continue to pay off was, I would say, lifetime experience. Um, it was a short stint, but I learned a lot from the founders who still are holding the ground there. And it also taught me how customer experience is at the core of the business when you do. Uh, for marketeers, that's one of the biggest, I would say, credibility, which converts into loyalty. And that industry does beautifully well. Every guest, how they convert it to a lifetime value through the loyalty program, and how one guest is for the lifetime for the hotel industry, in not just from the rooms to the restaurants to actually gifts to then actually going into retail, and then again coming back every year, every season, every holiday, making that special. I think they do it very beautifully well. And that's what I think all of us in marketing today in different industries try to perfect it with personalized, digitalized customer experience with content. And they do it real time with product and services. Kudos to that industry who is doing such a fab job.
No, I think fully resonate with what you're saying. I feel whenever I go to any hotel, it's always so much, my brain's like firing up, saying, oh, there is so much to learn from a customer centricity point of view, from a customer experience point of view, that they go beyond. Like, even from a CRM point of view, they get the 5 stars get it so well that they know so much about you. It's really crazy.
Imagine Oberoi as a brand as a bespoke experience.
Right.
So while they already personalize and then they go even more detailed about you as an individual, they know your choices, they know your preferences, and then they customize it for you right from the time you enter the hotel to the time you move out of it. So, I mean, one of the exemplary works.
Absolutely. I've had experiences with my father where we stayed in a hotel, and my dad travels in a particular chain often, and he doesn't eat apples too much, and they kind of left a note the next time saying, hey, we will replace the fruit for you. And that was like over 3 years, and I was like, this is mind boggling. But I think what I loved what you said about crisis management was, don't let your customers feel you're in a crisis. I think that's your job as a marketer, so I kind of loved that. Talking about hospitality, I think it's an interesting space. You see a lot of startups uh, wanting to build in that. And I wanted to kind of get your perspective as somebody who was in one of India's leading hotel chains. How is this model evolving? Because obviously the elephant in the room is Airbnb, and how it has revolutionized a lot of these aspects. There's also this hostels which are growing, in popularity, especially for the working professionals and the young college student target audience. So, any thoughts where you feel there is some potential someone can have to build a hospitality brand which could be differentiating?
There is a lot of scope there. As I said, that number of rooms which is there in the country, I would say, is still very less. The and so you look at the occupancy rates of the hotel. It tells you the kind of rates it has, tells you that the rooms are lesser, so it is so much premium. However, again, go back to mass and mass premium and premium, and then there is luxury. So there is enough and more rooms to be built. I was fascinated by the model of how Oyo rooms came in and how you can really democratize the complete hotel industry with the Oyo room model. All it took them was every empty room is the possibility of a hotel room. And that's how the brand could expand itself at such large scale. I studied that brand very closely when I was doing my startup as to how every street vendor can be a real estate for a brand. Why do you need to create infrastructure around it when the infrastructure is already is there? Just put some standard operating processes and then brand it, commonize it, standardize it, and that's the brand, right? Airbnb is a great model in one form, but there are many more models which is possible. Ama is another one which is done beautifully well, which is a trail of hotel chains with exclusive experiences. There is postcard hotels is another one which is building very beautifully. Again, there are many properties across the country which just needs to be explored by people if those are converted to rooms which people can actually just explore and be there. um, it is the matter of imagining, I would say. And I have traveled length and breadth during this during with multiple assignments. Individual rooms which is available, individual lands which is available, farms which are available, uh, farm plots which can be converted to individual experiences, guest houses. Then there are villas which can be converted. Then there are apartments which can be rented,
Right.
right? And now just think about multiple models which can go around that. Uh, that's why I'm saying I'm very fascinated with Oyo because it tried, and then there is Airbnb which is trying. It has more possibility to scale up. New entrepreneurs which is coming in hospitality industry. um, I would say premium, super premium, luxury is one, but go more mass, because there are many more which needs to be explored to actually give them more opportunity to stay in a hotel room with certain experiences, and that should be driven little more down. I would say tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. If there are brands which can go there, there are far more possibilities. They are more closer to nature, but also more closer to real life of India, which can go towards tourism far more.
Fantastic. I think some really good ideas on what a lot of businesses can actually be built. So thanks for sharing some such specifics. We're almost at time, so I'll go to the last few questions now. I want to, talk, just ask you about what was the whole story behind joining, where you're at currently, which is Luminous. Any particular thing which excited you about the industry, which is why you hopped on?
See, industry change has always inspired me to, that just lends me more towards my desire to learn and push my boundaries and my capabilities. So every time I changed industries, it just gave me a new way of thinking, or I would say meeting new consumers, understanding different marketing dynamics. It just helped me go on and on in shaping newer things, newer business models, which can survive and grow profitably, uh, more sustainably. Energy as a sector is at the core of India's growth today, and I'm glad I'm here at the right time with Luminous, because I am getting to shape the future of energy in India. And not just I'm shaping it, but also focusing towards sustainability and driving through climate tech and innovation in the climate tech. So that's what is fascinating in this journey today, where I am. Uh, how did I get there? Uh, I was lucky to be there at this point in time, which is many of the initiative which is coming in is actually shaping how the climate, how sustainability, how energy transition is going to happen in the country.
Incredible. I think good luck to you for what you do here. I'm excited to see what comes out of it under your leadership. Um, I wanted to ask you about creative production now because it's something close to what we do at Indiefolio. Podcast will go to a lot of agency founders, a lot of creative freelancers in our network. And I wanted to ask you one, two things around here. I think you've been in various companies, you must have worked with a lot of agencies, a lot of creative people. What do you think separates a great agency from a good agency?
Ah, great to good is a journey, or good to great is a journey. So, see, at Luminous, what firstly on the kind of creative production which we do, we have a combination model. I do have in-house creative capabilities, and I do have some great external agencies, which is helping me to tap into the best of the skill set of the industry with different perspectives on each and every project which comes towards execution. I say this thing about the brands needs to today balance between in-house and external agency world, because it will in-house actually what it does, it enables you to manage your brand nuances, brand tonality, and your brand language better, because they are just sitting in house and they know each and every aspect of brand evolution. While what external agency is doing is getting a lot of fresh ideas, cutting edge strategies which they bring in because of their different brand, different industry, different company experiences. They bring specialization towards actually creating campaigns in an elevated way. It also brings a right balance about consistency in innovation. They constantly keep pushing you to bring new innovation in each and every of your work which you do and campaigns which you do. To me, the great a great agency is where they have I can find strong alignment with the brand values, and with the brand values which we have at Luminous. Also, if the agency can invest more time in getting a deeper understanding of the market where we operate in, or they have demonstrable capability towards creative solutions which matches towards the industry nuances, and they can bring those attention to details towards that industry, customize the solution for the industry to actually then create campaigns which is more meaningful, purposeful for that industry, um, and not just make same things work for every industry in the same way. They have to customize for that model, that brand, that business, that industry. So the industry, the agency which is bringing these aspects very well to me are great agencies. They are adaptable, they are flexible, they are pushing boundaries, they are true to their partner need, and they are also agile, they are creative, they know how to creatively solve the problem, and in the process they are able to bring meaningful lasting impact to the brand building. That is what is great agency for me. It takes a lot to be great. It's not just one or two things, as I was just saying.
Absolutely. I think, again, once again, brilliantly put, as somebody who works with a lot of creative people, these aspects is what people don't, consider. They're always like, I'll do good work and I'm done. But good work is almost like hygiene. the aspects you mentioned is what really kind of puts you in that 1% club, which marketing leaders start trusting you for. I just want to jump into the last question now. I think you've given a bunch of advice in the entire podcast, but I'm going to kind of ask you that once again, that as a parting thought, if you wanted to give advice to any young marketer who's listening and tuned in to this podcast, what would that be?
Very simple, stay curious because marketeers have to constantly keep evolving, and you have to, and the space is changing so rapidly with digital, with AI, with data driven strategies. Marketeers have to be completely nimble and agile, yet very curious about the changes which is happening around, and be adaptable. Try and experiment with newer things which you learn quickly, fail fast, and modify to come back faster to replicate. So I would advise all the young marketeer, stay curious, be agile, be nimble, be adaptable, experiment, take some risks early on, and never lose the sight of the newer trends which is coming in. Read, be the part of various forums, network as much as possible to find out what's more which is happening. That's number one. Number two, I would say stay connected to people, to your consumers, to your customers. Whatever is happening in the world around you, whether it is AI, whether it is data, whether it is digitalization, what will still remain very core to marketing and brand building is the emotional connect with the consumers and the customers. So never lose that sight of the human element. Great marketing is ultimately about connecting with people at a deeper level, connecting with your consumers at their need level, understanding them better with more humanized approach to establishing an emotional bond, and that's what will matter going forward. Being bold in your ideas is about staying connected and rooted to your consumers and customers. That's what will make you succeed in the world which is changing so fast.
Superb. I think what a fantastic point to end the podcast on. Stay curious, stay connected. Is a great takeaway. That this marks the end of the podcast, Nilima. Thank you so much. I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time talking to me. You gave me tough questions to think. A lot of time when you continuously work, it becomes so mundane that you actually do not think so deeply about many questions which you asked. I love the questions which you have.
Awesome, awesome. I'm so glad. Thank you so much for that. And for everybody who's tuned in so far, if you'd like to hear another marketing leader like Nilima, please like, share, and subscribe. We'll soon come out with another episode on the channel. Thank you so much.